Thank you for tuning into the latest episode of the In Stride Podcast. This week, we dissect some of the points made in our previous episode with Dr. Andrew Koutnik and some of the research he has done and is currently doing, and give our commentary on the high carb versus low carb fueling strategies and what that means for both diabetes management and athletic performance. If you're finding these podcasts interesting or useful, please drop us a like or a follow on any of our social media platforms and check out our website to learn more. Additionally, we have just created the InStride T1D subreddit to start building our community and sharing our collective experiences overcoming challenges with all things type 1 diabetes. You can find this subreddit under InStride_T1D on Reddit. Join us there in addition to our other social media channels. On to the episode.
I think there's some fun science there to unpack. Like, I really like that idea of training your body. The stuff I've really kind of engaged with this kind of sciences, and what really resonated to me when it comes to, it's a tool in the toolbox, right? If you can train yourself to be efficient at fat oxidation, then that's something you should definitely maybe think about. And two, be able to do zone 2 or do segments of your training in zone 2, fast it and get your body, to go into that zone. That makes a lot of sense for just me in my 40s, thinking of it as a tool to, do intermittent fasting, train in that state, get my body to go into autophagy, which is, using the old dead cells for energy. Makes a lot of sense. There's some really good science behind that being something that's healthy for you. I've been playing around with that kind of stuff and really feel health benefits from that. So, that's something I'm kind of stoked on. But then again, when it's time to go hard, be fully fueled, get the most out of, ATP production and recovery as well. I think there's balance. I don't think it's one or the other. But then again, one of the things that I liked about bringing Andrew on was just showing that, hey, you can find stuff that works for you. I remember I raced with a triathlete, Ironman triathlete, when I was still doing some stuff with Team Novo Nordisk, and he was pretty much on an eating regimen like Andrew predicted, and he was fast, and it was pretty impressive, super skinny, and he had really good blood sugars, and it was working for him. So what I was getting at is I like to see both sides of the coin. Seeing you go fast, Justin, eating tons of sugar, just doing it like a Tour de France racer would do, 150 grams per hour, just going really fast. And so the elite, that kind of program. But then listening that, hey, if that's not something that you're comfortable with or you want to engage in, there's, that's not the silver bullet. What makes Justin super fast. There's other people going fast, like my teammate who was on a diet like Andrew was suggesting, and also going really fast. It was a different pace. He wasn't going super high intensity like you were. It was more just this, probably, Ironman triathlon is probably a high zone 2. For a long time, and so you are going to have to rely on some fat oxidation.
Yeah, it's what kind of a 7, 8, 9 hour effort for an Ironman. I think, 100%. I think the science there is there's nuance to it, plain and simple. And when we're looking at it, it's kind of hard to make this comparison, but elite endurance athleticism, while it is still a long effort, it's a very different type of effort than, say, an Ironman, which is also elite endurance athlete, but it's a steady state time trial effort. Yeah. Whereas
that's not bike racing.
That's not bike racing. That's not marathon running. That's not actually, those are kind of the only two. No, I'd say snow sports, ski mountaineering, cross-country skiing, stuff like that, where it's kind of variable intensities, both whether it's tactical or course dependent, and being able to articulate your level of effort and what zone the efforts are in, aerobically, is I think that's where the higher carb stuff really shines. And maybe, and it sounds like that's different than the research that Andrew has done
Well, I
currently.
think
Yeah, I'd be
what's
curious to
interesting.
find out like how. Sorry, Alex, I want to play off what Justin just said because I think one of the things that's interesting about the sport of cycling, which is so, and this is like I know there's some triathletes that are on the high carb diet as well.
Yeah.
But like I said, I had some elite amateur experience where I had teammates that were doing pretty low carb stuff. But one of the things to highlight with cycling itself is, and I don't think people really understand at the elite level that Justin and Alex raced, and a long time ago myself. These are 6-hour races, and they're just so like, I mean, you're going into like zone 5 throughout those 6-hour races often, and then you taper back and you burn the matches when you have to burn the matches, but then you're sitting and you're recovering, and it's just up and down the whole time. It's just really a unique sport that I don't know if anybody's going to really be able to study in a lab setting. It's going to be, I think they're doing it now with CGM and races, kind of seeing what's going on, what the body's going through. But it is a pretty unique effort, time wise and just up and down intensity wise. It's pretty cool. Sorry, Alex, I went on a rant. What were you going to say, man?
All good. What was I going to say? I think, well, you brought up, your point about like studying a lab, right? And I obviously was listening to the conversation after you guys had it, since I had to drop off last week. But one thing that I picked up on from that conversation was this kind of concept that, they said the same athletes and they had a high carb diet, and then they also had like a ketogenic diet, right? But what I noticed, at least as I was getting ready for Unbound, is I wouldn't say, I mean, I wasn't, anywhere in the extreme. It was pretty much in the middle. It wasn't a high carb diet. It was high carb during activity, right? Which is one thing I noticed did not get mentioned at all, kind of in those conversations. It was, in kind of some of the actual details that I was kind of like, I recognize that there's obviously something there, right, at some level. But my question kind of, it really comes back to the same thing we've been saying all along is you have to experiment to figure out what works for you. You have to analyze what your goals are and figure out which thing matches, right? Because, I know that the first kind of study he was talking about was like, oh yeah, we did these things and we checked the, fat oxidation after they did a 1 mile time trial and an 800 meter run. I was like, right. But if I'm looking at my zones, my power zones, my heart rate zones, whatever, it's kind of a curve on the way up, and that those zones dictate how your body is, at least the training science indicates, right? That's how your body is. The zone indicates how your body is processing fuel. So, obviously he did go on to say they did, the more of the stress test. I believe it was like to failure 8 times, but maybe you guys went into it a little bit more. That didn't quite make it into the final recording. But what to failure meant was that just run until you collapse, or was that sustained 4-hour effort? At zone 2, zone 3, zone 3 plus, etc. And I think that's kind of where there's a lot still to learn. And the reason, right, that we see Tour de France athletes consuming so many carbs, right? Or I can't remember his name, but that Ironman triathlete that just destroyed the record, that was basically filling his 22-ounce bottle with just straight goo and drinking that, like in the realm of 200 carbs an hour. Maybe you don't need to go that high, but I know from absolute personal experience that coming back to cycling, training significantly less than before, high carbs prevent bonking. Like, I haven't bonked. Or let me rephrase that. I have bonked before I realized that if I just start shoveling more carbs in my face, over 5-6 hours, I'm better off. So I don't quite, obviously not a doctor, but personal experience indicates that there is nuance that.
Well, I mean, the cool thing is like, we're not going to land the plane on like the nutrition debate on what diet one should be using for success. Like I think the cool thing about having Andrew on, and like the cool thing about listening to you guys talk about your prep and your nutrition leading into your races, is that there's lots of options. There's lots of science that can support either side of the coin. And that's why, was really excited to have Andrew on. And it was so cool to listen to like his science and research that's about to be released. Because again, I'm going back to this, like this was a question I had when I was, racing 15 years ago with a bunch of other type 1 diabetic athletes. It's like, okay, what is the thing that's leading to this group of people being really successful? And again, I go back to this, like what I experienced at that time was there was not a single through line of consistency of what people were doing. It's like, okay, Brett over here is doing this, nutrition on the bike, and Jimmy over here is doing this, and it's like, it was different. And so I was like, oh wow, okay, what is it then? And so really the reason like I'd like to have this conversation, it's for the audience to realize that, like, hey, there's not a right or wrong way to do it. It's like, find what works for you, do like what we talked about, make it a game, like try the thing that makes sense to you, that makes sense for your palate, that makes sense for your rest, recovery, and, watch your numbers and say, hey, okay, this worked. I'm going to try the thing that Alex was talking about. I'm going to dig into that, or I'm going to do what Justin's doing. I'm going to dig into that science. I'm going to figure out how to, tweak my insulin protocols to make that work like Justin does. And that makes a lot of sense to me. And I want to do that. Or, hey, I really like that science that Andrew was talking about, and I'm going to dig into that a little bit. And he mentioned, like, hey, if you just try it on day one, it's not going to work. You're going to crash and burn. There's like a protocol to it. So I'm going to figure out what that protocol is, like what I need to do to lead up to it. And so, like, what I love about it is, it's like, again, we're going back to this, like, okay, what is the thing that makes somebody be able to thrive with type 1 diabetes? It's not a high carb diet or a low carb diet, or 150 grams during training or racing, or trying to get your body to run on stored fat for fuel. It's like, it's this approach of, hey, I'm going to look at the science that makes sense for me. The sports science is what I'm talking about. And then I'm going to, and what's funny about that is there's sports science, obviously, that we heard from Andrew that says, hey, let's do it on, fat for fuel. Let's do low carb, find out what that science says and how to create protocols around it. Or I'm going to do a high carb, approach. And it's like, man, just find out what works for you, trial and error, make it a game, make it fun. I love that, because again, it's like, there's not a right or wrong way to do it. It's just like, hey, be engaged, pay really close attention to how your body's responding, and go from there.
Yeah, I think, so I was going to say, it'd be really interesting, Justin, to hear how you kind of have gone through these paces in your own stuff a little bit more. But I do also want to point out too, right, that there is also, and this is by no means the case, right, but like, as people are listening and trying to figure out what works best for them, there is some complete BS, science out there that, like there's the prana diet, I think, where people are like, oh, we can just live off of the sun's rays and stuff like that. So the important part is to, like, listen, make sense of what you're hearing, and then go try it out, right? Because you don't want to end up in the other end of the extreme. Like, obviously, us, we've lived this experience. Andrew has a lot of research in these areas, so there is a lot of, like, reality to the success rate in these areas. But, just because you see somebody that's like, oh, well, I discovered that I could drink gasoline, and since gasoline fuels cars, then I could go really fast like a Ferrari. Obviously, that's ridiculous, but, like,
That's ridiculous.
Be cautious.
That's not what we're talking about, though. I mean, obviously, you
right.
have to be smart with it. I'm just saying, there's not a silver bullet. All I'm trying to get across here is that there's not, like, oh, if I just can, like, do the thing that Justin's doing, then I'll be like Justin's. Like, that's not the factor that's going to make you a successful athlete, right? It's just that there's this like approach of like paying attention, watching your blood sugars, being engaged, learning from the little mistakes, getting closer to success. It's just like your story, Alex, is the one that I'm like most like trying to relate here. It's like, hey, you used to do it this way. Then new science came along that says, oh, wow, people are doing 150 grams per hour. I'm going to try that. And so what did you do? You took little baby steps towards that, that nutrition science, that sports science, and it ended up working really well for you. And so it's just like, that's the mindset, that's the process that I'm trying to say is what is important. It's not, A or B diet plan. It's this like approach of trial, error, adjust, make progress towards the thing that you're trying to aim at.
Oh yeah, we're in 100% agreement. I just was throwing that caveat out there as anybody that might have seen something that might be a little bit too obscure, because there could be a lot of that out there. So just
gotta be careful.
Exercising a bit of caution. But
well, anyway. and again, like the thing that I'm saying, it's not like, this actually is a great point, Alex. It's not like, hey, if somebody's dangling something like at some extreme example that Alex just said, it's like there's science, right? You got to look at the science. How does the body respond to the thing? And that's part of being really hyper engaged in your diabetes management, like saying, okay, I'm going to go try this thing, but what is actually going to happen based on the science that we have to my body? And that's the thing that we're talking about, this like trial and error process, but like it's got to be based in real science. The reason Justin consumes 150 grams of carbs per hour during his race is because there's good sports science that supports that, hey, this is, as an elite athlete, there's success by doing this. And so he looks into that. He says, okay, what physiological things are happening when an athlete does this? What do I need to do as a diabetic to compensate for this? Again, I'm driving a manual here, and I've got to like make sure I do it right, and find success that way.
Yeah, no, I think you guys are both 100% right in both of the examples there. And I think one thing that or two things that really can't get overstated are the nuance of, like, specifically relating to Andrew's research and what Alex and I have done with high carb v low carb, is the nuance in it. And especially, Alex was saying this earlier, the high carb diet, quote, in quotation marks, that I've prescribed to, again in quotation marks, is like almost exclusively during exercise. Like, my normal diet outside of the activity itself does still have carbohydrates in it, but it's not like I'm only eating carbs and like just enough protein and fats to survive. It's very well balanced. And I was actually talking with my friend about this on our way back from the last race. Like, he was asking me questions about like, just how do you feel after you have 1,000+ grams of sugar in a 5-hour span? And I feel like I need some vegetables. I feel like I need some nutrients. I need something fresh. And like, my after race craving, almost every time after any race, maybe crits are the exception, but like anything over a couple hours is always like the biggest, freshest salad I can find. Like, I don't crave pure, simple carbohydrates all the time just because I'm having that during this exercise bout. And I think that is a very important point to make in the high carb v low carb debate that's going on. And again, this also relates to endurance sports that have varying degrees of effort that are going in throughout the duration. Like what both of you guys are saying, and like I'm consuming this high amount of carbohydrates to perform a certain way, and that perform a certain way is to produce these very intense, very high level efforts at the end of a 5, 6, 7, 8 hour race. Like, it's like the first, obviously you need to get to the finish of the race first, but then being able to produce like really high intense, like VO2 max plus efforts after you've been working for so long, I've found to be And a lot of the sports science that I've looked at and listened to, and I think a lot of other elite cyclists are looking at, are that you're able to replicate those efforts with at a higher percentage of what your maximum like 5 minute power is at the end of a race if you're doing high carb. And that's, I think, prime like a huge reason high carb is so prevalent now in elite sports. I had a second. Sorry, I had a second point and I forgot it, so I'm sure it'll come back as well.
Well, so you kind of you sparked a thought, and I feel like this is be an interesting question to get you guys' take on. Right, so let's say hypothetically, maybe not hypothetically, maybe based on a bit of science, that like the low carb fat oxidation fueling. Right, we've shown already like zone 1, lower zone 2, that that's a higher percentage of fat versus glucose. I'm wondering, right, if there might be a value. Let's take these like ultra endurance races that people are doing. RAM is not one of those because that is like high intensity all the time for 5 straight days, right? But like the 300-mile or 350 Unbound, or all these. I wonder if there might be a value in that, more faceted approach. I'm curious to hear what you guys think of this, like, because there's no way you're going to be able to maintain as high of a level of effort for that longer period. Like, where's that crossover, right? Like, we've shown it Unbound in the 200 that the higher carbs are allowing you guys at the elite level to push the pace faster and faster for longer and longer. But is there a point where like humans are kind of just, we have to go into that upper zone 1, lower zone 2 level where fat oxidation is maybe more valuable? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's exactly what we're talking about here. And it's like there's different tools to pull out at different for different needs. And I don't think that's really what Andrew was talking about, but that's what I think we're trying to get to here. And I think that's what makes sense. I mean, what Justin, you said is like perfect. It's like, that's a great thing to call out. It's like, hey, Justin's not on a high carb diet. He eats really healthy. You can see that in his build, right? He's a skinny guy. So obviously during the day, his body is very good at burning fat for fuel, for recovery, for, for just like getting ready for the next day. It's just that squeezing the juice when he's really has to for these like long, super intense bike races. So that was a great thing to call out, because I think that's like we maybe make the conversation sound like, oh, it's either a high carb all the time, like William Samson recommended way back in the day, or it's a keto diet. And it's like neither one of them is a good diet, because it's like I've done keto like diets before just for fun to experience them, and I feel good, but God, they're hard to maintain. And it's like sometimes you just want, like Alex says, an ice cream cone. And high carb diets are the same. It's just like, if you don't want to be eating for all day, like that's horrible. It's like balanced diets, and then like using them as tools. Like I like going into zone 2 training in the mornings fasted, because I feel like there's some health benefits and there's some science that supports that kind of thing, especially for somebody my age that doesn't have super intense endurance goals like Justin or Alex may have these days. But yeah, like you're saying, Alex, it's like, yeah, for like long zone 2 slugfests, where you're just out there for hours upon hours, maybe like getting that body trained to just burn that fat is probably a decent way to approach it. And again, that goes back to like, what are you trying to get out of it, right? What makes sense to you? That's kind of what I'm trying to lead these conversations into, letting the listener know that like, okay, hey, there's lots of ways to do it. It really just comes down to like paying really good attention, like reading the science. How does the body respond to this situation? What does that make sense? How does that, what does that mean for somebody with diabetes?
Yeah, I thought too that it was listening back on that conversation. The thing that was the biggest improvement in performance during those studies was when sugar was actually introduced, right? And the goal was keeping the blood sugars stable. But yeah, so I'm kind of like wondering, like, at what level, where does this apply? It's kind of like how to figure that out. Because if we look at my Unbound graph, I had a couple small spikes here and there, but you could see those were at like the rest stops when I was just like shoving extra carbs and things in my face. But like, I think my blood sugars that day were between 130 and 170 for 13 and a half hours.
Dude, you might have had better blood sugars than a handful of non-type ones out in that race. Like,
well, it was the most successful diabetes day I think I have ever had in my life.
Yeah.
And it also involved having 115 grams of carbs ish per hour for 13 and a half hours and matching the appropriate amount of insulin to the effort, right? So I guess that's kind of the question, right? Is like, how much sugar could they have gone to keep those blood sugars stable? And then would that allow them to increase their effort, right? If they're yeah. Sorry, Justin, you were about to say something.
No, I remember the second point I had, and it is 100% what you're saying there. We are hyper focusing on our both carb intake, insulin management, and blood sugar management when we're doing these high carb, like I'm talking about you and I, in these like high performance, like athleticism environments. And I assume the same approach is being said for Andrew's studies with low carb approaches. And that in itself just breeds like excellence in performance, right? Like being able to pay attention so precisely that you're doing exactly what you've trained your body to need to do, is that right there is huge. And that's totally a mindset thing. Um, Obviously there's some science and like food science and body science involved as well, as into which way, what is going to be the best and most optimal for whatever athletic performance you're trying to do. But I think the one big carryover between the two approaches is just how focused we are on what we are doing exactly, and then being able to extrapolate whatever we want from ourself for it, right? That's big and can't go understated as well.
That's it, man. That's the silver bullet. What you just said right there.
Yeah. And by doing, yeah, like I know we've talked about this in the past, but for me, being so hyper focused, it's like that's background noise for me now, because it's just a little part of everything I do. And the same can be said about anyone for anything, right? It's doesn't have to seem, it is overwhelming if you look at it from like a grand scheme of things, but in the day to day, it's nothing. If it's always there, it's not there at all.
I like that. I think that's it. Like, just start somewhere. Like, have an approach and just pay close attention. Kind of try to figure out what's happening and make little adjustments. And you're going to be like Justin, just being able to crank 200-mile races, just full tilt.
As long as you don't crash in the mud, you'll be fine.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think we landed. I think he landed it perfectly on the approach to nutrition. I think we can have this debate forever. I think people are still having this debate, and they're going to for a very long time. But dude, how was your bike race? Justin was just at Gravel Worlds.
I was at Gravel Worlds this past week. That one didn't go so well. It rained the night before, like Friday evening, same as the race weekend, the race that I did the weekend before, and it was bone dry out on course prior to Friday. Like every ride I did was just like dust on everything, just riding by myself, like incredibly dry. Um, what the promoters put out like a Instagram reel at like 4 a.m. on race morning. We started at 5 something, so that wasn't like totally obscene. But they said like
perfect time for you to watch it as you're like warming up and going to the line, right? You're like, let me check Instagram.
I did watch this on the drive to the venue, and they're like, okay, watch out for mud. But like where they were at on course, it didn't look that muddy, so I was like, it's not gonna be that bad. And the first so like we hit like this race takes place in Lincoln, Nebraska on gravel roads, and you go through a couple minimum maintenance roads that are essentially just dirt. The gravel roads that we started on, totally fine, totally dry. It was like we started in the dark and it was dusty. I couldn't see a single thing. It was a little terrifying, but like in the first 30 minutes, like there wasn't a drop of water on the course. There wasn't any mud. I was like, we'll be chilling. But then we hit this first minimum maintenance road, and it was the most like peanut butter mud is an understatement. It was concrete, and like wet concrete that just had no traction. And coming into this, I was coming in a little hot. I was sitting. I think I was actually sitting 10th wheel. But I knew this section was coming up, and I thought it might be the first section where the race really breaks up, whether there was mud or not on the course. So I was in good position, and the guy in front of me slowed up a little bit, and I was like, "Well, I'm not gonna like lose this speed that I worked all like so hard for this early in the race." So I like kind of veered off the line, and as I veered off the line, that was in one of the car tire tracks. I just like lost it and kind of ate shit in front of everyone, and.
I think I saw right that like that group. You were in kind of a split group at the front, like the race had kind of gone apart a little bit, and like everybody behind used that section after everybody in the front just ended up walking right to like
Yep. Yeah.
basically
Like,
catch back up.
it was. Yeah. It was. That was the first muddy section, and basically from
Chaos.
then on, it was just like whoever could get through it, whoever stayed on their bike. If you stayed on your bike, like you had to be able to ride your bike. There were a lot of sections you had to like get off and run because the mud was so bad it was going to clog up even the biggest tire clearance you had. And it was a mess of everything. But yeah,
I saw that you weren't the only elite pro to be taken out by the mud. There was a handful of pretty top level guys that did not make it through those sections. So
yeah.
you were in good company on the on that result. I did notice that a professional mountain biker did win this gravel race, so that was kind of I think a good telltale what was going on there.
It was kind of nice to see him seal it off. Yeah,
gritty mountain biking skills to win that one.
Yeah, truly. It was.
And Matt just has that like I don't know him obviously, but just seems like once those legs get going, it's just a freight train that can't stop, right?
Yeah, no, and like the terrain out there too. After the muddy sections would just roll in for day, like no big climbs, but it was just up and down all day. So he didn't stop and sealed the deal. It was cool to see.
Yeah, no, it was fun to watch. This was a good coverage. I watched the end of it, and man, it was beautiful out there towards the end of the day.
Yeah.
I saw the replays at the beginning of like in the dark, you guys like all falling in the mud. It looked horrible. It's not how it looked on the TVs at the end of the race.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was one of the. Yeah, I guess I would have crashed before 7 a.m. I've never fallen off my bike that early in my life ever. It was, yeah, I think like 6:30 something or whatever. I was just.
Time of day, not
it was like still. Well, I think the fact that it was still dark out probably didn't do you any favors.
It did. There was enough sun when we hit this first muddy section that you could see everything, but like prior to that, that was a little terrifying.
That's terrifying. Weirdly, just race that fast on gravel roads in the dark. That's remarkable. That's like next. That's awesome.
Justin talking about crashing that early sparked a memory. I think during RAM, I think I crashed my bike at 3 a.m.
Oof. That's not a fun time to hit the deck.
Yeah, it's just like, well, it's never a fun time to hit the deck, but
true.
Yeah.
Also true.
Yeah, I never really thought about like that was definitely the earliest I've ever crashed my bike and the earliest I will ever crash my bike because there's almost zero chance you're going to catch me on a bike at 3 a.m. at this point.
I hope so.
No, I mean, crazy. That's like the coolest memories of RAM for me, Alex, is like getting a race.
Me crashing.
No, getting to race your bike really hard in like 3 a.m, like in just the middle of the night. stars out. It's like, when do you get to do that? Like, I guess gravel races these days, you get to start early enough to be in the dark, but I don't know. I think that's kind of a special, fun experience to
That's
feel
pretty
that you're
rad.
out there cranking hard in the middle of the night.
Yeah, I think I really like the memories. Completely off topic of what everything we've been talking about today, but it's just fun to think about. But it is. Yeah, those are definitely cool, right? But I thought it was really like the things that stick out in my memory so many years later is just some of the absurd situations we found ourselves in
Totally.
that we overcame. Like I think I was saying like a few weeks ago, was like the van caught on fire one year. Like I'm coming in from the end of a slightly long pole, and then everybody's bailing out of the minivan that I was supposed to go get in, and I was just like, "What's happening?" And the van literally just like explodes. It doesn't explode, okay, but you can see the flames coming out. And I was like, "All right, guess we're out here for a few hours." Like those are the memories. Those are the memories that stick out in my mind. But that might also just be trauma.
No, those are the good memories. It's like the whole part of life, man, is like bumping up against stuff and moving forward anyways, in spite of it, because of it, and then smiling, laughing back on it.
Yeah,
Nice.
That's what it's all about.
So yeah, Justin. So you said you're off to St. Louis for some crits this weekend, right?
Yes, I am. Fly out day after tomorrow. Gonna go race 4 days of crits at the Gateway Cup, the last race of the American Crit Cup. So it's gonna be biggest, fastest 4 days of racing in the U.S. Ready to. One of the guys on the team I'm racing for is sitting second in the sprint leaders jersey, and we're all hands on deck to get him back into that and make it his.
Sweet. Those are such awesome races.
Yeah,
Especially that sprint.
Nice.
You've done the Gateway Cup before, right?
I have. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, at the hill.
Yep. That's the.
You gotta be at the front. You gotta be on the front on the way up the hill with two full turns to go because you got a downhill 800-meter sprint at the end.
Yeah. There's 4 days of racing, but the hill day is the American Crit Cup day. So that's
the best race. That is my favorite race there.
I'm excited. I'm excited.
Justin, are these races streamed as well? It's been fun to watch you.
I hope so.
On the streaming services.
I thank you again for watching along. Hopefully my name gets shouted out for me this time. I think these will be.
Hey, you gotta get a pink and blue kit. I think that was why.
Just wait. We've got some special kits coming in for Gateway this weekend, so we'll stand out for sure.
Cool.
But they should be live streamed. Where we're gonna find that, I have no clue at this point. So.
All right, I'll pay attention to your Instagrams, and the listeners can as well. What's your Instagram? If people don't already know, I'm sure it's in the notes anywhere.
That's a good one. So I'm at J_Macquarie.
Okay.
Easy enough. I'm Justin.
Find the streams. Well, yeah. That's where I'm always finding the streams as you put those up when you find them, and it's fun to follow them.
I try to.
Is this going to be out before the race?
It will be, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Everything's going up.
You're fast at this, dude.
Getting better and better.
Cool.
All right, blood sugars and then call it.
Oh yeah. I don't think I'm gonna win tonight.
No, we got to keep talking because I gave myself insulin 15 minutes ago.
Dang, I'm 155 with a slight arrow up. Oh, 61.
Yeah,
arrow across though.
195 arrow across. So I think none of us win.
Yeah, I think
what did you say you were, Alex?
195.
Oh no, Justin's got it. Going into nighttime, going into sleep. What are you saying? You're
155, but it is a slight arrow up, so I think I am still gonna have to do something. And Alex has already done something, so we might have to call this one an even tie all the way across.
Sure, why not?
All right, we're all a mess tonight.
I got home and immediately my daughter was like, "Dad, you bought black cookies." So then we had 3 Oreos.
Nice.
Oreos are awesome for what it's worth.
Yeah.
Really not huge.
I just missed it. I just missed it tonight. I missed the dinner bolus. I don't know. Went too heavy. It was like 42 when I started this podcast, so I apologize for any ramblings that happened.
Dang.
I tried to hold it together. I was coming up, so I knew I was on the right trend. I'm still only 60, so no, that's my excuse. Held it
Good.
together. Still had a chat.
Worked out well, I think.